Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub, the Junior Golf Podcast. Ryan Burr with the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. Roger, what a special guest we have today, entering his 28th season as the head coach at the University of Texas. You're talking about a Hall of Famer, one of the all-time great college coaches. John Fields will be joining us shortly. Has he seen some things over the last 28 years? How about some of his guys on the PGA Tour and what he's been able to have them do going from college to the next level?
I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it, Ryan. I mean, this guy's impressive, what he's done. These players that are coming out, it's going to be amazing to hear what he has to say.
He, of course, is at the U.S Am, Roger, which, pretty incredible what Luke Clanton is trying to do. Of course, had another top five on the PGA Tour. He's played now 75 holes in the last 2 days. He is clearly into match play. I guess the most remarkable thing for me is, how is this guy not the number one amateur in the world? I mean, he would be like 40th in the FedEx Cup if he was allowed to take the points.
I know. And why hasn't he actually turned professional? I mean, come on. I mean, let's think about that one for a second. His NIL money must be unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it is a combination of obviously NIL. He says that his goal is to not leave until he wins a national championship at Florida State. Obviously, he's playing the U.S Am this week. That comes with a whole lot of goodies if you're able to win. It will be curious for me if he doesn't win the U.S Am and get the U.S Open and the Masters and all those things. Does all this money maybe change his mind just a bit, as it's now time to move back into the dorm and get things going at Florida State? I mean, what could the max for – I was thinking about this. As far as NIL, he can't really help Florida State. Like, I'm sure they're giving him as much as they can give a golfer, but it's not like a football or basketball player where he's going to directly impact their revenue. Now, his golf club deal, the name on his hat and his shirt, obviously that is directly going to impact those companies. But I can't imagine that Florida State can pay an NIL out of their collective for someone that, as great as he is, he really isn't going to make them a penny as far as return on investment, just because obviously you're not charging seats to get into the thing.
Yeah. To your point, I mean, that's a really tough one for him and the university when it comes to what he's worth to them, right? They ship and that's it, and that's a great thing. But certainly think he's going to be able to bring notoriety to their program, even more so for sure. Him personally making, playing as well as he's playing, I think it's a no-brainer.
And with that, we welcome in the head coach at the University of Texas, entering his 28th year at the helm, one of the all-time greats. It is Coach John Fields. Coach, thanks so much for joining us on the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. You are at the U.S Am this week. So many questions for you. Let's just start with what you're watching right now. This field is incredible. Of course, you've got Big Tommy in the field, and he's likely the next great superstar from Texas. But as you've gone to the U.S Am over the years and watched these amateurs, give me what the biggest difference from your eyes are from today's college player ready to go to the next level, maybe as opposed to 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ryan, for having me on, first of all. Happy to be here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Nice morning. It looks like it might rain this afternoon, but anyway, we do have Tommy Morrison in the match play after yesterday's qualifying. Christian Moss, who's top 10 in the world too, who is going to be a junior and from South Africa, that won our regional championship last year, is also in the field and is in the match play. Had a good solid round yesterday. So I'm really happy that we've got two guys in match play. We're watching several recruits out here. But to answer your question, I think that for sure it's all about belief. I harken back to the days where I had Tim Herron on my team. A lot of the kids might not remember him, or parents, or just golfers for that matter, but he is on the Champions Tour now. Tim is from Minneapolis, and he was on my golf team when I coached at New Mexico in the early 90s, and he was an exceptional talent. He was New Mexico's first team All-American ever. He played essentially right before Nota Begay started playing college golf at Stanford out of Albuquerque. But those guys are virtually the same players that are playing today. That high-value player that was an All-American way back then. The only difference is that these kids have belief, and some of these young men have unlocked the code. You know, whether it was a Jordan Spieth or a Justin Thomas, they came right out of college and did what they did on the PGA Tour. What they've continually done is kind of knock down the walls that would preclude a collegiate golfer at the end of his career from going straight out onto the PGA Tour and having success. I'm not saying that everybody can do that, but if you're a first-team All-American or the like, then it's quite likely that you can do that. Luke Clanton at Florida State is one of those guys right now. He's had success on the PGA Tour as an amateur this summer. He came right over here. He's going to be in the match play, be a force to reckon with. But he's going to get out there on the PGA Tour very soon, and he's going to have success.
Hey, Coach, Roger Nick here. Again, thanks for joining the show. Hopefully you can hear me. Coach, what you just said, I hearken back to a conversation we had a couple of years ago at dinner with Nota Begay and I and yourself and your wife. And you mentioned something I thought was very, very interesting, and I think it's what you're saying now is the competitiveness of these players that you're seeing, whether it's today player or whether it's yesterday player, is really what makes the difference to I think an outstanding player, a solid All-American who's going to go out on the PGA Tour. That stuck with me. I think it's probably the basis in which you recruit your players on, or at least, try to find out what that is. Is that something that you would say is like the number one attribute for a young player, is to build that competitiveness if you can? I don't know if that's even coachable, but if you can, is that something that you would, definitely star beside every name that you are recruiting?
Well, I agree with you. I think competitiveness is the core value that's consistent with these guys. Nota Begay years ago, Tim Herron. I got to watch Nota grow up as a young man in Albuquerque, and he was super competitive. He played basketball for the Albuquerque Academy. And whether he was in basketball or a golf tournament, didn't matter. He wanted to win, and he hated to lose. The top 5 guys on my team over the years started with Tim Herron that had an extra gene of competitiveness. So Tim Herron, certainly Jordan Spieth, but certainly Scotty Scheffler and Cody Gribble, and then Bo Hostler, probably the top 5 guys that from time to time are really hard to deal with as a coach, just simply because they were so competitive. And I like to think that we did a good job with that. We didn't get in their way. And each one of those guys that I've mentioned is either on the PGA Tour, a couple of them are number ones in the world, and 4 of them have won tournaments on the PGA Tour. So I would kind of associate that with fire. They have a really amazing fire burning in their soul and in their belly, and as a coach, you do not want to take that away. As a parent, you do not want to take that away from the person. If you do, you might be taking basically their ability to compete away from them. That doesn't mean it's easy, because sometimes they'll say things on the golf course as a youth because they're immature that might get them in trouble, or they might do something on the golf course that might get them in trouble. Maybe bang a club, or maybe hit the golf bag or something that would you would definitely call it to their attention, but you got to move on. You cannot take their soul from them and that competitiveness. And so I do think it's extremely important. I think it's relevant on the PGA Tour. I think it's relevant at high level collegiate golf. And I would say these guys out here today, these collegiate players, it's very, very close to professional golf now, because they play on great golf courses. They have incredible equipment. The club manufacturers are behind them. A lot of them have agents today that they did not have years ago. And it's moving very fast. But what it does, all those things, to find the right guy, it finds their competitiveness and it gives them a chance to win.
Well, Coach, that is an amazing answer that opens up so many questions for our listeners and viewers. For sure, Clanton actually said a couple weeks ago, he said, I'm not the only one. He said, you could take 10, 15 guys from college right now, and if they were able to play on the PGA Tour every week, we'd have a top 10, top 5 every single week that was an amateur from college. Certainly Dunlap actually won. Clanton has nearly won 3 or 4 times. You look at what your guys have done, and it's remarkable, the names you named. I think, Coach, what I want to hit on is, it's interesting. We do a different coach every week. We have coaches that have won national championships on the men's and women's side. And it's funny because most coaches say, well, I watch to see if they hit their bag or if they throw a club or if they swear, because, that's a red flag that we don't want to recruit them. And I find it amazing when I look at your career. Certainly you have your pick of the litter every year. Everyone wants to go to Texas. So you can actually choose which players play for you. And you actually don't mind I hate to say the word temper tantrum, because as you said, they're kids, but that's not the worst thing in the world, I'm guessing, from your eyes, because it shows you how much they care, which at the end of the day, isn't caring the most important part?
Yeah, I think number one, you have to have respect for this game, right? And I think, and a true love for this game. And you can see that with these kids and their parents and so on and so forth. That fire, my wife's more competitive than I am. And I saw that in her a little bit when she was playing softball in college. I would never want to take that away from a player, and I definitely want to have that. It's my job over a 4-year period or 2-year period, whatever, to kind of help shape that to a certain extent so that they can utilize that a little bit more, that fire, that energy, in a more positive way. And we talk about those things. I mean, if you do those things out on the PGA Tour, they find you. You hit your golf bag real hard, and put the pin in real hard and, pull it or whatever. I've seen a number of things over time. Or a guy gets out of line, you go sign your card on the PGA Tour, and as you're stepping out of the tent or whatever it is, they hand you a little envelope, and it's a fine. And so that changes your mind really quickly. But at the same time, you learn as a professional how to utilize that strength and energy and desire and maybe shape it just a little bit better. I've talked to the caddies who have caddied for the guys that have played for me that are in that category. And I ask them if it's still there, and they go, oh yeah, Coach, for sure, it's still there. But they're really good inside the ropes, and if you're not standing within 10 yards of us, you don't know really what's going on.
How do you? I'm sorry, Coach. How do you recruit that fire, though? When you're at the U.S Am this week, you said you're looking at a bunch of potential Longhorns. How do you, when you're looking, and like I said, you can choose between 2 players that are absolute monsters in the junior game. We're talking about high school players that are in the U.S Am match play. What are you looking for today, tomorrow, that might separate 1 versus 2 when it's time for you to decide who you want?
Well, first of all, if they're here at the U.S. Amateur, they're exceptional, right? I mean, it's not easy to get here. You got to go through a qualifier, and now you got to go through 2 qualifiers to get here. You're an exceptional talent, and most of these guys are winners. I think back to when I was in college, and I listened to the old coach at New Mexico, Dick McGuire, who wasn't my coach. He coached Dwayne Knight, who coached me. And so Dwayne Knight was at New Mexico for 10 years and then went to UNLV for 30 years. Coached for the better part of 40 years as a coach. Anyway, long story short, I was listening one day to Dick McGuire talk about the people that he recruited. And he goes, I simply do this. I recruit winners, state high school champions, state junior champions, AJGA champions, whatever it is, I recruit winners. And I think that's a good model. If a guy's winning at his state level or even in the city, if he wins his city junior or that sort of thing, when you start winning, and then if you can get out on a national level and win, Scotty Scheffler won the United States Junior Championship. Cody Gribble won the Western Junior Championship. Bo Hossler won the World Junior Championship. And Jordan Spieth is one of 2 guys on the planet that have won multiple U.S. Juniors. The other guy is Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods won 3, and Jordan won 2. So I recruit winners. I really do, and that it's not always the case. But I will say this: if you get a guy and you think he's going to be a winner, it's 50-50 at best.
Wow. Well, that's actually very interesting to hear, Coach, because it is a question we do like to ask all of our coaches, which is that question from rankings to when would you rather have a kid who's going around playing the rankings game, getting their rankings up, or a kid who's learned how to win at the local and maybe even the national level? So it sounds like you've answered that question, but I'll ask it, I'll still ask it.
Yeah. Nota Begay was that guy. He was a winner. I just couldn't get him to stay in Albuquerque. I'm actually the one that helped him get to Stanford years ago. But the funny thing is that he was a winner. And of course, everybody's asking me, why isn't Nota coming to New Mexico? And it was just simply because he wanted to get out of the city of Albuquerque and get out of the state of New Mexico, just so that he could spread his wings. And he did that. Went to Stanford and played with some great winners. One of them being Tiger Woods, and Nota won 4 times out on the PGA Tour and had success. But he was, before anything like that happened, he was a winner at the state level in the city of Albuquerque on multiple occasions. Then he took it out onto a national level, did that as well. And it was tough to not be able to get him, but we were on the same wavelength. I knew he needed to do that, and he did it, and he went on to win. For our guys at Texas or even New Mexico, Tim Herron, years and years and years ago, was the state high school champion in Minnesota. And in that same class, I recruited a guy named Brian Corton. He's now the head coach at Texas A&M. Same thing. He won the South Dakota State High School Championship and had a fire burning in him. And he managed to get all the way out onto the PGA Tour. Didn't stay out there, but he was out there, and now he's the coach at Texas A&M.
I want to get into Scotty real quick, but you brought up Nota. I want to ask you, Coach, it's come full circle. You're now going back to the state of New Mexico, back to Albuquerque to play in Nota's national television event on Golf Channel, a match play that how crazy is it that, college golf, you look at what you've been able to do with the NCAA championship, taking it out west and this event in New Mexico, and certainly Nota's plan is to do many more college events on television, but the whole television part of this, NIL, all this wrapped in one, how wild is college golf right now? The wild, wild west with everything that's going on.
I think it's exciting. It's definitely accelerating the opportunities for our kids to build their brands and to capitalize on NIL. But it's also pushing them further and further into the belief that they're relevant and that they can play with the best players in the world. It's fun to see that Noda is giving back to collegiate golf now. I think a lot of our players will do that, and that are out on the PGA Tour. You mentioned also that the national championship is at La Costa. Oddly enough, the University of Texas is hosting a national championship in California while we're sitting there in Austin, Texas. But it's a long story how we got there. But suffice to say, we're trying to make it the permanent site of the national championship. Noda's actually helping with that. I think guys like Tiger Woods will help with that. Maybe Xander Schauffele that lives right there, and so many others. I think they're going to help us continue to build our championship into a PGA Tour event. And I'm excited about that. But the beneficiaries of that are all the kids that play golf, both men and women. And women's golf is on fire right now, too. So I'm truthfully very humbled and blessed to be part of all this right now. I'm 65 years old. People ask all the time. And, of course, my brethren are throwing darts at me going, oh, you may not want to go to Texas because he's probably going to retire.
You're having too much fun. You can't retire.
The ability to have energy, so I'm going to keep going for a while. And college golf is an exciting place to be right now.
Coach, with that being said, I mean, we're seeing also the same things. You know, Ryan and I are both, and Noda, very involved in the junior golf space. We're seeing so much going on in that space as well. The national teams taking hold, and you're starting to hear a lot of buzz about both the women's or the girls and the boys' national programs. How do you think that's going to play into the growth of the game as we continue on this path?
Well, it's just another component of a continued build of getting kids involved with golf at the junior level. And I'll probably meet with Fred Perpall, the president of the United States Golf Association. He is a wonderful guy from Dallas, Texas, played basketball at UT Arlington. He is an exceptional man and recognizes the need to continue to grow at the junior level and help really bring all communities into the game of golf. I think it's going to continue to grow, and whether it's inner city Black kids that have never really been pushed into golf with the first tee, that has created pathways for different communities to get involved with golf. And then it's the job of the United States Golf Association and even the NCAA to help those kids prosper in the game of golf and to move on. And we've done a little bit of that, but we can do a lot more of that. And part of that's what the College World Golf Championships Foundation is going to do. That's an entity that we formed to help fund the national championship, and then hopefully Division I, Division II, and Division III, NAIA, and junior college going forward. That's about 12,000 opportunities for kids to play college golf on an annual basis. So what we're going to try to do, along with the United States Golf Association, is to help really grow the game from the grassroots level and get kids who otherwise wouldn't normally be involved with the game to come in and prosper with the game. And Seth Curry's doing that right now with his foundation. So I'm excited. Again, it's just a great time to be involved with junior golf and college golf.
Well, that's a great answer, and kudos for sure. The final question, Coach, because I know you have to run to the AM. It's a two-part question. It's Scotty Scheffler. The first part is obviously he had a great junior career. Won at all levels. In your wildest estimations, did you see that you could be looking at one of the top 5 players in the history of this game? Certainly on the path to one of the top 10 players in the history of this game. And part 2 of that question, the first time you saw that footwork, Coach, how close were you to nailing those feet in the ground?
Well, both of those are great questions. Number one, I'm a Class A PGA professional. I've been with the PGA of America as a golf instructor and as a golf professional that sat behind the counter and served our members and golfers' needs. I gave 3,000 golf lessons before I ever became a golf coach, and that was 38 years ago. So, but the one thing that I know is that we're to do no harm, and so we work really nicely with our players, teachers, or their golf instructors, and in this case, it would be Randy Smith, one of the top 5 best teachers of all time, right there in Dallas, Texas, that worked with Scotty. I always worked with him. I certainly did not work on Scotty Scheffler's golf swing. We never want to get in the way of a player's growth, and the best way to get in the way would be to utilize my ego to try to tell Scotty Scheffler what he needs to do with his golf swing, and that would cause confusion, and you might not have ever heard of Scotty Scheffler at that point. So the best thing that we can do is work with the player's instructor. That's what we do. We have a good line of communication. So I never questioned how. I just knew that he was putting up great scores, and we needed to enhance his game, but not inhibit his game. And that would have been something I would have done if I got involved with his golf swing. Jordan Spieth, same way. Remember, he's got that little chicken wing going through the ball. And Johnny Miller said a long time ago that he's going to have to change that. Well, 13 tournaments later and 3 major championships, he never changed it. So he's pretty darn good too. Anyway, as far as Scotty Scheffler, my goodness, did I ever think that he was going to do what he did? I have big dreams for our guys. I really do. I vision tremendous success where I might not have understood that he could get as far as he has so far, and that he likely will go further. I do have big dreams, and I do believe in visioning things. I think that's intrinsic to the game, because you want to visualize that shot before you ever hit it. And I'll just say this, whether it's a Nota Begay or a Tim Herron or a Jordan Spieth or a Scotty Scheffler, I do have big dreams.
Well, a great answer, Coach, and we thank you so much for your time today. We know that we're asking a lot while you're at the AM. I certainly look forward to sitting down with you in October at Santa Ana for the television event. And enjoy the walk today. Thanks so much, and have a great 28th season at Texas.
Well, you guys too. Thank you very much, and hook 'em horns.
You got it. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Well, Roger, worth the wait, certainly. He is something else. You can see why he is successful. He opened up about 6 podcasts for you and I to discuss. So I'll just start with your number one takeaway from that interview.
Number one takeaway: culture. I think obviously recruiting winners, albeit it's going to come with its problems as well. It's going to create an environment and a culture that's going to be hard to beat, right? I mean, these guys are coming in winners. They know how to win. They're going to try to beat each other every single day they go. I would have the pleasure to go down and be with the team and do PDI with the team a couple of years ago. That he cares so much about his players, that he wants the best environment for them. Part of the reason why we were there, I thought it was really tremendous to see that he really just creates an environment. They have the best tools, they have the best practice. You've got the best of the best coaches that come in and work with them. They're, obviously individuals have their own coaches, but even his coaching staff that's there and the team, everything is there. And so it's clear that he cares. It's clear that his enthusiasm for at the campus, on the practice facilities, on the golf course, he just loves the game, and you can tell it. So I think culture, what I gained from this.
For me, that last answer about big dreams. You can imagine a freshman with a great resume arriving at Texas. The intimidation of the size of the school, the history of the program, the other players that are on that team. But Coach Fields looking them in the eye and telling them that he believes they could be the best to ever play at Texas. And I mean, just think about how empowering that message would be.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, in fact, Stan, I mean, you look at his rosters and the success he's had. I mean, Doug Gim, for example, who was the first team All-American there with Scotty Scheffler. Over Scotty Scheffler, who was the third team All-American. I mean, he's telling, both of them, I'm sure, that, hey, you're going to be these amazing players. And Scotty Scheffler going, I'm a 13 All-American. I can't even beat my teammates. Bo Hostler, same thing. I mean, so but in fact, I think, again, that enthusiasm and that him envisioning their success and creating an environment really. I do want to tell one story while, because he was telling me this, his competitiveness, as the team, as he was talking about the recruiting, one of the things he talked about was it hurt him so badly one year with the Cooney brothers, who were so competitive. They were racing in the gym, both crashed into a wall and broke their wrists, leaving them unable to participate in the NCAA National Championship finals for his team. But, in his mind, it was like, but that's what I'm looking for, right? So that competitiveness, that environment, obviously, but what a story, what a history, storied history there. And I'm sure he's going to continue doing what he's doing. So.
Yeah. There wasn't a ton of junior golf questions there, and I'll be honest with you. The reason I kind of stayed away from that is Texas isn't one of those schools where you're sending the coach your schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a little difference between how to get to Texas. You don't need to go find Texas. They find you because you're a top 25 player.
You win.
And you win. I think you want to get noticed, go win your state championship.
Yeah, that's it.
And then send coach a letter, and there's a good chance you're going to get a response.
Well, you know what? What I really took out of that as well is, like, he's recruiting North Dakota and he's recruiting Minnesota because they won their high school national championship. The guy's looking at what's happening out there in the landscape, so he knows if you're winning or not. So I'm sure if a W comes up, and he's going to go, who is this player? Let's not just not look for him. Let's find out who he is. You're not going to North Dakota and finding a player, that wins a high school championship.
No doubt. Also interesting, you had mentioned that you had dinner with he and his wife. I do find it very interesting as we talk to our audience, and they've heard the initials PDI, they've heard the acronym, and obviously a lot of are investigating and looking into this new development system for sure. Give me a little bit about Coach Fields' response to PDI and why he was obviously so into it that it led to this meeting.
Yeah, you know what? His response to it was him not getting in the way of his players' development, right? He wanted to make sure that he's providing every opportunity for his players to see where their games were. Competitive environment for him, right? I mean, they're all there challenging themselves to beat the score or have this best score. So I think what I took from it is it was a way for his players to go out and hit golf shots, go out and make putts, go out and actually, challenge themselves in an environment at practice that says, hey, am I good enough to go out there and compete? And his best players are all there. Matter of fact, was actually in town that week and happened to come and do the PDI as well. And it challenged him, and he even stepped back and, you know what, this is why I'm doing this. I'm here to get better. And he missed 2 of 4 3-foot putts, and he had just, after I looked at my stats, and putting was one of my weakest points that year. So 2 years ago. So I think since then he's cleaned up. So Coach Fields was really impressed with, what PDI, the Player Development Index, assessment was doing for his players. Shot in the moment and seeing a result and them feeling that pressure. And, him and his coaching staff standing kind of, watching over and saying, hey, you got to get better. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I mean, what more of a testimonial for PDI is the fact that the guy you just listened to, who, in the conversation for the greatest collegiate coach of all time. I mean, his resume is that impressive at New Mexico and, of course, now at Texas. So for him to endorse it and have his players do it, why in the heck would you not, as a parent, have your son or daughter be doing that as early as possible? I mean, to me, that is about as, when someone gives you their secret sauce, it's then our job as parents to make sure we take that and be like, oh, wow. I mean, there's a reason that Stanford and Texas are doing PDI. I mean, they may not have it on a billboard on campus, but the fact that those coaches are endorsing it certainly tells me all I need to know as a parent, that, well, if they believe in it, I should certainly believe in it. And there's obviously, it makes the player better, which at the end of the day, no matter what level you're at, if you're a Texas player, that's great. If you're a Texas D3 school, whatever it is, the goal is the same. Let's get better at this really difficult game. And, the fact that you guys have uncovered a system, Roger, that not only makes the player better, but also helps identify the ultimate ability of a player and how much growth is still left in the tank, seems like a no-brainer. Go to juniorgolfhub.com, find much more about PDI, and all we can say is, if it's good enough for Texas, it's probably good enough for your son or daughter to start that implementation into their game as soon as possible. Roger, what else? Anything else on your mind here as I'm still grasping that interview with Coach Fields? That was pretty entertaining.
Very entertaining. Well, I mean, listen, we've got so much going on in the junior golf landscape right now. I mean, you see these young women who are playing the game as well. I think the young girl who just qualified for the Open, Women's Open, coming up next week. The amateurs are now qualifying for these major events, almost as though it's for them now. So I think that's pretty amazing to see evidence that the game is getting stronger. Maybe some of these things are happening the globe now, in the sense of players are just training better, getting more information, time and time again now. So really, as he said, I think with the national, programs, taking off, getting more notoriety, I think it's going to lead to more, growth in the game in the junior space. College can't grow much bigger, Ryan. I mean, obviously universities aren't popping up just for college games, but the junior, there are more opportunities out there now than ever for juniors to get involved, to get better with the game. I would just like to say, one is playing in tournaments isn't player development. I think it's a part of player development. I think one of the things that parents are, and Coach Fields mentioned it earlier about the Steph Curry Foundation and what they're doing to bring new opportunities into the game for under. But that's not all of it, right? Bringing tournaments is one thing, but having player development is a completely another thing, right? I think events, what do you do after the events are gone? What do you do if you're in the Northeast snow belt regions, or what do you do when it's too hot to go out and practice enough, right? Work on the, in the gym, have to put in the mental work, have to put in the physical work, have to work on the skills. So it really is important for the parent to understand of events doesn't mean that you're actually getting player development. I think that is one thing that want to make sure that resonates.
Absolutely. That is a great way to end things, that, playing, as you said, 54 tournaments a year, that's not player development. Certainly you can learn something and learn how to win when playing tournaments, but player development is that grind. It is going through the work. It is putting in the time that all the greats have done. With that said, we certainly thank Coach Fields for joining us today. Roger, we thank you. Thanks to Michael for getting us on the air with Coach Fields. And for the Hub Junior Golf Podcast, I'm Brian Burr saying until next time. So long, everybody.
Easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say.